The following episode was recorded around August of this year. Unfortunately, it took a while for me to actually get around to doing the editing process because life got in the way, and it's now done, but unfortunately, this episode will be going up 2 days after the latest trailer for the 60th special is dropped, and they, of course, confirmed and debunked a few things which we discuss in said episode. Annoying, but hey, what are you going to do sometimes? And I'm still putting it out because it was a lot of effort to do, to make, and I really enjoyed making it with Harry. So, regardless of this, I hope you enjoy the episode. So, it's been a long time coming for this episode, but we are finally here to talk about the 60th anniversary. And we've somewhat brought up a few points in certain episodes, but this is the episode we are finally going to be talking about, nothing else but the 60th. And of course, I cannot do this episode without my amazing co-host and friend and fellow Doctor Who fan, Harry.
Hello, that's me.
So, mate, it's been ages, and this has been a long time coming, not just on Grey Owl, but in general since, the idea with the anniversary, coming up was announced, really, and when we started getting a lot of feedback about news, really, about what we could expect, probably. So, what were your thoughts preceding, all of the recent news we've found out? If you were to jump back in time to 2020 or 2022 or 2021, what would you say your expectations were for the 60th back then?
So this is before David Tennant was announced, before RTD was announced, all of that?
Yeah, basically.
So before all that was announced, the future of Doctor Who was really... it wasn't very clear and it wasn't very optimistic because we were still in the Chibnall era. We hadn't had Flux yet, or Flux had just happened, or was happening. And we knew that was the end of theirs, but we didn't know what was coming next. So everyone was wondering about who'd be the next showrunner and who it should be and who the next Doctor will be, and if there is going to be a 60th, because a lot of people thought that after Chibnall's era there might just be a hiatus because Doctor Who isn't doing so well and nothing's been announced. And it took a while for it to be announced after it didn't actually. So the last episode, it was Flux after Flux, before the last episode when RTD was announced. So before RTD was announced, it wasn't. It was all up in the air, wasn't it? It was like maybe after Jodie's last one there just won't be any more. And I remember a lot of people wanting all these different suggestions for showrunners to happen and all this sort of stuff. But about the 60th specifically, everyone, because of the 50th, people wanted a multi-Doctor story, and it was like, is Jodie going to be the lead of that? Is it going to be Jodie and then who else would join her? Maybe David Tennant, because there's been a lot of David Tennant Jodie stuff anyway, like the video game and a lot of sort of expanded media has got both of them in it because they seem to be good pairings as Doctors, because in real life they're like friends, and they did Broadchurch, and so that might have honestly been a good episode for Jodie, because if it had David in it. Depends who wrote it, though, to be honest, because it's still Chibnall.
I've heard I have generally heard from a few other fans or Whovians that Jodie in the expanded media, like the comics and the novels, she's a lot more well received, and I can't say for the life of me if that's true or not, because I haven't given them the chance to read any of those, because I don't want to waste my time if I'm being blunt about it. Again, that's what bad writing in a show can do to you. It makes you puts you off the extended stuff. And I mean, as we've talked about before, she's definitely this generation's Colin Baker, really, where maybe over time, and if we're exposed to a lot more of her Doctor under a different, head writer, maybe in a audiobook series or future novels that might get our attention, she could have been well. And going off what you said there, and also kind of backing off on our previous episode that we did together, if Jodie's era had been well received and she had stuck around for the 60th, really, be it as the Doctor or even just as a returning Doctor, whatever form that takes. And yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see her interact with other Doctors, to say the least. And considering what we did get with Power of the Doctor, that was by one of the best bits of that last episode.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, it could have been interesting.
Yeah, like you said, the part of Power of the Doctor with her and the other Doctors was the best part of it, because the other Doctors' actors have so much sort of charisma as their Doctor. So like that was fun to watch, even though it was still written by Chibnall. It was acted by them. So it's the thing, we've said this a million times, but it's just the combination of Chibnall and Jodie wasn't the best. Like Jodie could have been amazing with a different writer. Chibnall would have been better. Well, Chibnall has been okay with writing for old Doctors when he doesn't have to make them up. We've said this before. Like on his episodes, the dialogue has been fine with and like the sort of, maybe not the plots, but like the sort of vibe of the show is fine, just because the cast has already been there. But his stories are just not, well received, and even before he was the showrunner. So yeah, but like back to being about the 60th, it would have been cool to see Jodie with maybe a different writer doing the 60th with a bunch of different Doctors, but like when David Tennant was actually announced, initially it was everyone was really positive and really happy, but then slowly after it got a lot of backlash. Did you notice that? I
did. I think this was generally a good strategic market on Russell's part, because a week after David was announced as returning, sorry, it was the other way around. Ncuti Gatwa was announced as the Doctor, and then a week later we found out that David Tennant would be coming back. So while there was, as you said, pushback from certain fans, rightfully so, all that jazz, a lot of it was, in my opinion, generally like well received, because it gave the idea that while we will be seeing a familiar actor come back for the 60th, we know we're going somewhere with another Doctor for the next era going forward. David Tennant isn't going to be a permanent replacement. Because generally, I feel like it's very well understandable that fans would think, oh, they're bringing back a Doctor that's more popular because this era's been shit. And it was. And it's hard to not see it that way.
I mean, that is what happened.
Yeah, it's not hard to see it that way, considering the situations with Who and the storylines we've been given and how fans have reacted to them in the majority. So, it's just... people can jump to those ideas. But I would personally say that it's what they did was a really good strategy. And let's just face it, as much as we would love to see David Tennant do more, I'm fully open to the idea of him just doing 3 specials and then dipping, because he's one of those Doctors that, as amazing as he is, he's also had his time. And we might be jumping a bit forward to the conversation here, but the truth is that he's pushing like early 50s now, I believe. And while that's never a problem for Doctor Who sometimes, because look at all the other previous Doctors that came back in Power of the Doctor. They were like
the first Doctor.
Yeah, they were pushing like
he was already in his like mid 50s.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to get across was that the age isn't 100% of a matter, unless of course they've got certain problems that's referring to their real life. But the point is that any actor can come back at a certain time, but they also can't do it forever. Hence why I've also been pushing for years that we need to bring certain companions back from Classic Who are pushing like 60 to 70 to 80 now, because even though they could come back in some form, age does hinder certain situations. Like we can't do a full episode with, let's say, Jamie McCrimmon. We can't have him and the Doctor reunite and fight Yeti because I don't know, maybe he doesn't act anymore. Maybe he's going out of the experience of that, or any other situation. Again, I feel like I'm going on a bit of a tangent again, but the point is that age does have its effects on people, and that will affect productions. So,
yeah, but also you've got to consider with David Tennant,
and that's what I was trying to get to.
He's not even about age, just about him coming back. Like his 3 series with RTD before were amazing. and you risk him coming back and doing a lot more, that it will get worse and worse. So like it will tarnish what's already come. But like you said, coming back to do 3 episodes, I think is a really good idea, because we get to get our Doctor again, but he's not staying, and he's like it's a nice little moment in Doctor Who history, but then it will move on, just like how Doctor Who has to move on, because if it gets, I think that's what we had with a lot of Jodie stuff, like with the companions. They just kept staying on. Like if they were in one season and then we got a new one, then we got a new one, it would be, and with Clara as well. If you get one season and it's a good one, and then you can move on. If you stay too long, you risk just not being as well liked as you were initially. So it's the same thing with the Doctors as well.
I agree for the most part. Again, I feel like we kind of got mumbled in. Well, I got mumbled in what direction I was taking that conversation. But essentially, what I wanted to say was that I feel like, you know what? let's just like, I feel like we don't need to go too depth in that. I do partly agree with what you're saying, though, in that sometimes prolonging stuff, especially if it's not done well, can have a bad effect, because it all depends on storytelling really, and how the characters are received and how they're presented to the audience. In the recent case with the Who companions, they weren't good. With David's case, he has such a legacy of an era that's well liked, that it does have a risk if he comes back for a prolonged period that could be tarnished. So it is good that we are getting him just for a short period of celebration. It is literally just a celebration of the past. Yeah. So it does mean we have hopefully a good future with the next era. But that prolonged little bit of a prologue there out the way now. We can now actually get to what we, for the most part, can expect from the 60th. So I've got this. I've given us some notes. I've sent them to you, mate. You can look at them at your own leisure, and I've basically put them in bullet points. And they're not in any specific order. These are basically just what we, for the most part, know about the story, the plots of the episode, and some of them are rumor centric. So some of the stuff could not turn out to be the case, but I thought I wanted to highlight them just because I feel like it would be an interesting addition to the conversation, and also because if it does turn out to be true, it just means it's even more exciting if we're proven right.
Totally, yeah.
So, for what we know so far about the 60th, we know that there's 3 specials, and that the first one is going to be called The Star Beast. And for the first bullet point, the first special will be based off... The Star Beast, is of course based off the Doctor Who weekly comic strip of the same name, which of course makes it obvious that this episode is likely going to be a loose adaptation of said story. Now, I mean that one off the bat, really. What does that tell you about that? Did you expect them to do adapting a story for an anniversary special?
No, I did. Honestly, I didn't even know that it was going to be or didn't even consider it to be an adaptation, because I knew it has got the aliens who are from the comic, but I guess I didn't realize that the name of the title of the episode was the same as the comic, so I didn't realize that until just now, actually. So yeah, to be an adaptation of an existing comic as the 60th is quite a wild thing. But I was actually thinking about this the other day, because and this might be going way ahead because we haven't even got to who the main villain is going to be, but the whole thing that you can put together from what's currently happening for the 60th, behind the scenes and in story, is that it's all repeating itself again. So it's RTD's coming back, Murray Gold's coming back, all this sort of stuff, all the producers coming back, David Tennant's back, so in a sense the 10th Doctor's back, Donna's back, these aliens are back, and the story is a story that's already happened. It seems a lot of wish fulfillment, but I think that wish fulfillment is going to be is because RTD's clever. I think it's going to be 100%. This wish fulfillment is going to be like a part of the plot. Like it's going to be a reason for it, and because the Neil Patrick Harris's character in that we haven't even got into yet, he's rumoured to be the Celestial Toymaker, right?
Yeah,
and who apparently he can manipulate reality and stuff. So I think he's definitely caused all of this to happen. Even the Star Beast, comic, and the 10th Doctor and Donna. I think all of this is him in context of the story, bringing it all back. And I don't know why it would happen, but I just think that's a really cool thing to think about. To be like, it's all connected to previous Doctor Who, and like, why is that happening again now?
I actually think I might have an idea of that based off all the notes I've compiled here, and we will get to that as the notes go on. So you pretty much summed up the next note here, because this special, all these specials will be having the Doctor reunite with Donna, her family, her husband, and it will also be the first special. It's also going to be introducing another character who is very strongly hinted at to be her daughter, named Rose.
Oh yeah, I think it's 100% going to be her daughter.
I'm really excited about that concept, because I think the great thing about returning companions is it always boils down to the question, what happened to them now? What's happened to them since they left? And from recent memory, at least, I can't think of a companion who's left and had kids before, much less kids who have gotten involved in a big adventure with the Doctor, especially when they've gotten kids when they're still, relatively, well, still very lively, because Donna is going to be like still taking part in the action. So it's not going to be a case of, the kid's going to be the one who's taking on the companion role, and Donna's just there for a support mentor role, like her grandfather was, like Wolf.
The characters that are similar to that has already happened have also been introduced by RTD. So Sarah Jane, she didn't have a kid when she was absent, but since meeting the Doctor, she did. But obviously in School Reunion, she'd met, like, she'd been doing loads of stuff. But then in the episode of Sarah Jane, I think it was Jo Grant, she came back and she'd had kids and grandkids and all that sort of stuff. So, but that's RTD. So he's the one that likes to do that, it seems.
Yeah, but they to be fair though, they've never interacted with the Doctor before. Well, at least the kids wise. Well, I said that, but they've never been on an adventure with the Doctor, is a better way of saying it. So that would be
not properly.
Yeah, so that's the way you'd think they would go. But no, we know for sure Donna is going to be the companion. Maybe Rose will tag along for like an episode or two, but for all three specials, it's pretty much believed that Donna is going to be the companion throughout all of them, which I find really exciting. We did a whole discussion on on the significance of Donna's return, for the most part, mainly about her death and with the possible consequences of that. Yeah. So it's story to potential wise, it's really exciting for me just to figure out how are they going to deal with this. Is this going to be something that's going to be a one and done, or is this going to be like, as you've suggested before, could this be a consequential outcome for the returning companion? Now,
go on.
So moving on, the next one, as you said, we've got the special introducing the aliens Beep the Meep and the Wraith Warriors. And this is another part of the rumour section here, but it's believed by the fandom that again, we will have Margulies, thank you. But there will be a lot of actor names in this I'm sure I'm not going to be able to pronounce, so I apologise in advance. But Mary Margulies, who played Professor Sprout in the Harry Potter film series, it's strongly suggested by the fans that she's going to be the voice of Beep the Meep.
I think that'd be hilarious.
It'd be interesting. I think this stems from the fact that a guest celebrity recorded some ADR for Doctor Who for the 60th back earlier in the year or something, and Mary was apparently within the area at the time, so that's where the theory stems from, I believe. And we know there is like audio footage of Beep talking in one of the trailers, but I don't think anyone's really put it together who that is yet. So it's still up in the air.
No, it doesn't sound like her from that trailer. It sounds like a child.
Maybe. We'll have to see on the day, but in terms of casting, it's just interesting, and I guess in terms of marketing, that's one way to get Americans interested, especially if they really love Harry Potter and Professor Sprout. The next note is that for at least the first special, we will see the return of UNIT, and this is another rumour here, but it's very possible we could be seeing a UNIT headquarters, possibly an airborne aircraft carrier. similar to the Valiant from season 3. And
I love the Valiant.
yeah, and it's rumored that this could be featured in the first special, possibly in the third, and could potentially go on to become a recurring location for future seasons of the show. And this again, this
That would be so cool.
yeah, this theory stems from the fact that a photo was captured of on the Bad Wolf set of a, I think it was a helicopter pad or a aircraft carrier pad that was found on the lot. So people kind of put the idea that, oh, maybe that could be like a big air spacecraft. I mean, if you're talking about revisiting similar imagery from the RTD era, the Valiant is one way to go. Also, considering how similar aircrafts have been used in the MCU as base locations for organizations like Shield and such, it's definitely one way to make UNIT a bit more involved, really, especially if they are going to be a bit more prominent in the RTD going forward. Because unlike the original era, they weren't really too heavily featured. They were in a few stories, but we never got to see the Brigadier. We never got to see Kate at the time. We never got to see any significant characters carry over throughout the UNIT episodes. So the fact that we've had Kate since 2012, really, as the figurehead of UNIT going forward, it's going to be, if this is true, it is really cool, and I really would like the idea of them having a proper home base that's not just another building or it's under a notable location, but we'll only see it twice in like two seasons or so.
I think it would be cool if UNIT was a recurring thing, like even more so than it has been. And yeah, with a base like that would be like an extra cool like part of the story. But it also reminds me a little bit of the Third Doctor, when like he was sort of grounded on Earth, and like UNIT was like in most episodes of his, and like was with the Brigadier and stuff like that. So like that would be cool if it was sort of like more similar to that, where there was these recurring characters that were in most of the episodes, or like more so than not.
Yeah, and adding on to that, again jumping forward a bit here, but I'll say it now. Because again, at this point of recording, it's still up in the air if this is true or if it's going to happen. But the possibility of there being a UNIT spin-off in the works, if that does turn out to be the case, it makes all the sense in the world that they would need a prominent filming location to serve as a main setting, a home base for UNIT for the show. And what better way to introduce it than the 60th anniversary? And you've got the kickoff point for a potential show, for not only for a location, not only for future seasons, but also for a show.
Yeah, just like the Torchwood HQ in Cardiff, in Torchwood, like that was a really sort of iconic set, and that was where the base was for the episode, like how the TARDIS is for Doctor Who. So like imagine it was the Valiant again, that'd be so cool if it was actually just the Valiant.
Maybe, yeah.
And if it was that again, it would be familiar, but like it's not like it's used like overused and tired out, because you've only seen it like in 2 episodes or something like that. I think about 5 in total. But yeah, like that would be such a cool addition to have it like familiar, but then all these new characters and new stories.
Yeah, maybe they can, because it got destroyed at the end of the Stolen Earth. So maybe they can reveal that we took the wreckage and we made it better. We repaired it, and now it's like it's got a new name, or it's named after an iconic character or significant character, or an iconic event, or something that could be like another add-on to the history of Doctor Who, which would be quite fun. And the next bit, Ruth Manderley will get, who this is an actress here, she will guest feature in a integral role during the specials, and her character will be named Shirley Ann Bingham, and her character is rumoured to be a member of the new UNIT team. Now, again, just adding on to the Valiant element here, if this character is well received, if it's good, I could see this character becoming a prominent member of the cast, again, of the UNIT cast. And again, if the rumours are true about a UNIT show, makes all the sense in the world. You'd introduce characters that could become more prominent as the story goes forward. So that's interesting.
Yeah, is she the lady in the wheelchair?
She is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wondered what her character would be. I thought, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought she might have been a villain. But I think it might just be because she's scowling, and that's instantly I'm like, oh, maybe she's evil. But I did that. It's rumored that she's going to be in Unit.
Yeah, that's the rumor at the moment.
But yeah, it would be cool to like because she was sort of like I like what they're doing with the casting of like of the 60th and the series on. They're like just announcing everyone. Like it's not like all secretive and they're only in the trailers. Like they're just being like, oh yeah, this person's going to be in it as this character, and I think it's a really cool thing they're doing. But yeah, like it's sort of hyping it up slowly, but you know it's not becoming irrelevant.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite of how Chibnall did it, and I think it's definitely helping them in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And the next note is about the director of the episode, and the director is Rachel Talali, who wrote some of the best episodes of the Capaldi era. She's quoted here as saying her episode will be more of a traditional Doctor Who story. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the anniversary specials might be structured. It's probably not going to be a direct one continuous linear story like Flux was. It might have a solid story like the Flux. The Star Beast will just be a loose adaptation of the comic book of the same name, and then whatever the next two stories end up being, there probably will be some interconnection, but they probably could in some form just be looked from a certain point of view as their own individual stories as well.
I think it'd be nice if they did that, just because I get it's cool to have one big story, but if it was like 3 episodes that you could just hop into separately, like after Doctor Who, like Doctor Who's great for being just you can just watch any episode when you want, really. So like when you go to see 2-parters, you kind of have to see part 1 to see part 2. So it would be nice if this was like a really tiny mini-series where you could just watch any episode in any order. Well, not in order, but like when you just want to go back to it.
Yeah, and on the last note here, the first special, and again, this is it's not a rumor, but I guess you could say the concept is more of a rumor here, and I won't say if this is somewhere I found, because I haven't found this, but I generally just thought this up in my head, but I won't take credit, because again, who knows. But the first special will introduce a new console room, and this will carry over into the next era going forward. And this is the situation I'm pitching, or what's the wording? The scenario I'm picturing. The episode opens with the TARDIS landing, the Doctor leaves, and we don't see the inside of the TARDIS. We just assume it still looks like Jodie's. By the end of the episode, after they've dealt with the threat and the Doctor and Donna are about to go off again, maybe travel the universe or find out whatever the big plot of the specials are, we enter the TARDIS, the Doctor's talking to Donna, he looks back at the ship, and then he halts and he realises, oh, you've redecorated, and we see the TARDIS its new look for the first time, so even the Doctor's surprised. I can imagine that would be one great way to, like, again, surprise the audience with such a big reveal, and then also have it play into the plot of, okay, what the hell is going on? Why have I got my old face? Why have I got this new look? Why is the TARDIS changing now?
And also, they've got to have that line. That line has been in like most series, so they have to have it in the 60th.
Yeah, and speaking about new looks and familiar looks, we cannot not miss talking about the Sonic and the Doctor's look. So, starting with the Sonic,
and also we need to talk about the TARDIS a little bit, because the TARDIS is like the rumored pictures and the leaks really are quite a departure from. Well, they're a departure, but they're also quite similar. But we'll talk about them, in whichever order you want to.
Okay, let's start with the TARDIS. And for the record, and this is just unfortunate timing, really. But for us, as of this recording, we do not know what the official TARDIS will look like, because we know for sure that they are going to be announcing it at some point in this month. Because we're filming this in mid-August, well, like early to mid-August. But how much do you want to bet? By the time this episode is up, they will have pictures confirming what it looks like.
Yeah, there'll be a video about it or something like that. They probably will do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could have waited, but honestly, with our personal life schedules, like going back and forth at this point, we felt like today was the best time for us to record. So for us, it's just a bad timing point. But from what we have gathered, based off leaked images, and this and the images we'll be using for reference here, these were created by a Whovian. I'm blanking off the top of my head who they're called, but I'll make sure to credit them in the description and share a link if I can, because they did an amazing job recreating this. If this does generally turn out to be what the TARDIS will look like, but based off what we see here, the TARDIS will be a lot more bigger. The roundels will be making a return, and the concept is almost very, how to describe it, very almost.
It's very sleek.
That's the word. Yeah,
it's
sleek.
very sleek, but it's sort of like a combination, like I was saying before about like how we're sort of getting old things coming back again. It, to me, at least this interpretation of what it might look like reminds me of the early TARDISes mixed with Matt Smith's TARDIS, because it like the original TARDISes were very white and very clean and quite symmetrical, but then the Matt Smith part, it's got the sort of the main shaft, like the tall pillar in the middle, like where the console is, was introduced with David Tennant and then Matt Smith's TARDIS. But then the sort of layout of everything is very similar to Matt Smith's TARDIS, where there's like a walkway from the door to the console, where there's like a base around the console, and then stairs going from there to upper levels and lower levels. It's very, very similar to Matt Smith's.
Yeah, and they brought back the scanners in a big on the wall,
Yeah,
and it's not
exactly,
just a
the big radars,
CG screen,
all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Also, I love that it's got levels again, because I really love that with Capaldi's TARDIS and Matt Smith's TARDIS.
Me too, 100%. And also, they have announced. I think this has been announced rather than rumours that it's going to be wheelchair accessible. The TARDIS, because, and I think the main reason they did that is because Wilf is going to be in it. Wilfred Moth, he's going to be in it. And Bernard Cribbins, when they were recording, was in a wheelchair, so it would make sense for the TARDIS to easily be accessible to him. But then I guess it's quite inclusive in general as a new a new thing for Doctor Who to have a wheelchair accessible TARDIS. So it looks like from these images that wheelchair users will be able to go on all the levels because they're ramps more so than stairs.
Yeah, I really like that approach, and I also just love the design that they've gone with. If this turns out to be the case,
if this is real, yeah,
it's just. I mean, if you were to pitch a console room for the anniversary of Doctor Who, I couldn't think of one better than this, because this definitely does feel like modern Doctor Who, but they've taken influence from the classic show. Because again, as you said, it's very reminiscent of the old console rooms where it was all pure white, almost like a genuine like alien spacecraft. And even the lights, the multiple lights, and even looking at the rotor here, it could be wrong. I could be wrong, but based off the design, it does look like maybe the rotor will also, like the top of the rotor will also move as well. Maybe it's very similar.
Yeah, similar to. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say very similar to Smith's TARDIS, which would again be a cool addition and equally a cool callback.
Mm-hmm.
And really,
I think that's also quite a good segue to talk about the Sonic.
It is. We will. I will just conclude with the TARDIS one. If this does turn out to be what it looks like, props to the design department and the people who made this show. Well, made the design really, because I really love this. And if by some chance that we are completely wrong, and whatever the TARDIS ends up looking like, I hope it does turn out good regardless. And whoever made these designs, you deserve to be. You deserve to design. Yes, exactly. Thank you. You got to the point straight away there. You deserve a job at the BBC because you've done an amazing job with this design. So props to you. It
is amazing.
But now transitioning to the Sonic, I got to say It's a lot more better than Jodie's.
Yeah, 100%. But like with our talk about the TARDIS, how it's sort of like old, consoles. The point of this new Sonic, and they specifically said it, like it's not even a rumor. It's all like observations. It's specifically said by like official sources that this new Sonic is based on old Sonics. So it's very easy to see the 10th Doctor Sonic and the 11th Doctor Sonic, but also I think it's quite reminiscent of the 12th Doctors as well. So there's a couple of reasons. So the bottom of the Sonic, the very like bottom part, is very similar to the bottom of the 12th Doctor Sonic, and then the top sort of main part of the like where the light is, the emitter, I think is quite long, and it's has four like columns sort of thing connecting to the top, and that is very similar to how the 12th Doctor's looks. So I'm excited about that if that was the intention. But then there was obviously the 10th and 9th and 10th Doctor Sonic with this sort of marbling effect on the handle, and the button is also, you push it up to make it, to change what it looks like at the top, which is similar to the 10th Doctor's. And then also the 11th, where he pushes it out and then the four prongs come out, and then the four prongs come out of this one as well, like at the top, so it makes it wider. And then also the sort of leather handle and brass elements of the 11th Doctor Sonic is also on this. So overall, I think it's a really, really cool looking Sonic.
Yeah, this definitely is a nice departure from Jodie's. And I gotta say, as you said, this one definitely evokes like past iterations of the Sonic, which does likely lead into the idea of what the story could be about, reliving the glory days in an amalgamation of scenarios and also gadgets. And again, if this I gotta say, I like it, but I am curious about really if this is going to be there for the long haul, because
me too.
I'm not gonna lie, if this is just David Tennant's, if this is just going to be the 14th Doctor's Sonic, I'm okay with that, because I almost want Ncuti, the next Doctor, the 15th Doctor, I want him to have his own Sonic. Really, I feel like every incarnation. I mean, considering how much the staple of the Sonic has become such a staple of the show since it was introduced, it almost feels obligationary at this point to have each Doctor have their own if they want to have it. So, and I understand that past Doctors have used the Sonic of the predecessor before, but I actually wouldn't mind it if this just ends up turning out to be 14 Sonic and we'll get a new Sonic. Maybe it might be a tad similar, but I hope 15 does get its own. Preferably if it featured the colour purple, because I don't know why I've had purple in my head for a while for a Sonic screwdriver. Sort of similar to for a while.
It's never been one before, has it?
Nah, and it kind of similar to how I thought for a while that, how cool would it be if the Sonic was yellow? And we did get that, but we got it on a poor design one.
Yeah. Back to saying about all the Doctors having different Sonics. RTD actually never did that. So RTD went from 9 and 10 having the same Sonic and the same TARDIS. So there might be the same case of that, because I think the TARDIS is going to be the same for Ncuti as well, because the exterior definitely is the same. And I guess if they're making this massive set for the 14th Doctor, they kind of have to keep it. But for the Sonic, you could easily do another one, because it's not going to be breaking the budget to make a new prop, because it's only a small thing. But yeah, I'm in two minds. I agree with you. Well, it'd be great if they all had their own different one, and also for marketing and for selling toys. If you make something new, they'll have to buy the new one. So that's what companies do. Marvel definitely does that. And Disney, and I guess now this is sort of Disney as well, so but I do hope, it'd be nice if you had a new one. But if, like I said, if this one stays, like if this Sonic is the same one, I wouldn't mind as well for that, because it's a really cool design. And also the toy, they made the toy of it already, and they've already released it, and it's already sold out. that has different colours on it, so you can change it. And I think they've got loads. I think it's blue and green and red and yellow and maybe even purple as well. But they've got all these different ones, so maybe the Doctors can have the same Sonic but with a different colour light. So yeah, I think that'd be a cool idea.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. We'll have to see when we actually see the final product, but from what we are seeing so far, it all looks so exciting. So, last one before we move on to the next discussion segment. So, the Doctor's costume. I don't think we were able to talk about it yet.
Yes.
But what do you think of it?
So, when it was officially announced or shown off, revealed is the word. I was in a sort of split mind, and I think I still am now, because it's obviously evoking the 10th Doctor's costume, sort of, but with the colours changed a bit. So brown suit and blue coat, whereas the other way around before. But it is a little bit different because I'm a big fan of all the costumes, so I looked into it quite a lot. He's not wearing a jacket, so before he'd wear a suit with a normal jacket and trousers, but it's not this anymore. It's a waistcoat, so it's a waistcoat and trousers. So that's a bit of a departure to his outfit before. And also the pattern on it is sort of checkered, or cross hatching rather than stripes. So that's also different. But to me, I'm not the biggest fan of the blue coat because it's shorter than the brown one, and it looks a little bit too tight. But I guess that has been what David Tennant wore anyway. He wore tight clothes anyway, like his suit was anyway. But I find the blue, it looks like it doesn't fit and it's too short. But also, I don't like the material much because it looks sort of suede-y. I don't hate it, obviously. It's a really cool costume. And he's gone back to the Converse again, which are a grey this time rather than cream. And also white shirt, which he never really had, and a sort of grey tie, which is like I said before, it's different, but it's all quite similar to how it was before. So I like it, but it's not my favourite. I still prefer his old costume where it's the sort of brown striped suit and the brown trench coat.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, personally, I if anything, when I first saw it, I for the most part, I really liked it. I especially liked the coat. I was more just a bit surprised at the choice of the undershirt and the trousers, because they look like they are they're clearly mirroring his old outfit, but they also seem to be invoking Patrick Troughton's checkered trousers look.
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I was a bit mixed on it because I thought, does David Tennant's Doctor wearing checkered trousers or checkered suit in general? It just feels a bit it just doesn't feel. It didn't feel right. But having given it time, and also I think what added to my mixed feelings at the time was because he was wearing very similar Converse All Stars. So
it is Converse.
Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, I feel like it's grown on me with time. I'm a bit more okay with it. In general, I do generally like the coat because I like that it invokes his old coat, but I do also like that it is so different. And also, I don't think we've had a Doctor that's wearing I mean, the Doctor has worn blue coats before in previous incarnations, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a specific incarnation that predominantly always wore blue. So I like the contrast. I like how it stands out with his Doctor, with his incarnation. And if anything, it's going to be a cool way to. It's just a cool coat that I think would be fun to have, or just fun to watch when he's in action.
Yeah, I mean, it is a departure from his old stuff, and I think it's a good that it sort of separates it both. So it's obviously similar to how it was before, but this is clearly the 14th Doctor, not the 10th Doctor. I think if it was just the same costume again, it might be a little bit worn out and a little bit it's just the same again, but it is different. Same with his hair. His hair seems like it's obviously big and pointy and spiky, but it doesn't look the same as it did before. But I think I like that.
Yeah, I believe, I don't know, I can't remember where I found this, but I believe someone did say in an interview that, or David Tennant himself said in an interview that, they deliberately they gave me the spiky leg, but they deliberately styled it differently, so it adds to the idea that he's the same, but also not the same.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that seems a common theme of this sort of new of the 14th Doctor and the 60th, where it's sort of the same but a little bit different.
Mm. And yeah, that overall is the first episode of the specials. Now getting to the second, and I'd argue super exciting one, because the next special is The Wild Blue Yonder. And we know nothing really about this special as of this recording. I'd like to think we won't know anything for a while still, probably up until broadcast, because it seems like they've gone out of their way to hide a lot from this episode, and we've only been given a few glimpsing moments throughout all the teasers and marketing we've seen. So, do you know anything about this episode? Just on your side, mate.
The only stuff I know about it is like from the trailers. I haven't really looked into it further, so like I don't know any specifics to differentiate between the other episodes. Like I've just sort of watched them all. Like I've seen the different trailers, but in my mind it's all just one thing. So I wouldn't be able to differentiate each episode really.
Oh, this is exciting then, because I can give you maybe a bit of an idea of what we could expect with the notes I've piled here.
Okay.
So, well, these are what I were able to compile from some of the footage we've seen. Now, basically, as I said, we know very little about it, but based on the brief clips we've been given, and they've released, we can sort of get an idea of what it could be about. And based off some of the cryptic teasers, a few lines of dialogue have been noted. One teaser has the Doctor saying, "She mentioned Gallifrey." Another line from the Doctor has him saying, "I'm sorry, Donna." In another, an unknown character says, "This is the edge of creation." And yeah, yeah, that's we know from footage-wise. But what does that say about the plot? Well, wherever they are, again, what we've shown in the footage, we've seen that the Doctor and Donna are in a ship-like structure or some form of like construction that has a lot of technology and CG on it, and they're being surrounded by sparks and maybe some form of an explosion, or maybe even an energy source. And they're clearly and there's moments where they're in clear distress. And based off these bits of dialogue, it seems to imply that there could be some involvement with Gallifrey and a place or a location called the Edge of Creation.
I personally don't think Gallifrey is going to feature in it, and the reason is I think that line where he says she mentioned Gallifrey is going to be something about. I think that he's going to be talking to like Wilf or Sylvia in that scene. This is just my own personal thing. This isn't. I think based on anything. This is what I think might happen. I think he's going to be talking to Wilf or Sylvia about Donna before Donna has like remembered him properly, and I think she's going to mention something about Gallifrey, and he'll be like, "Oh, she mentioned Gallifrey. Her memory's coming back," all this sort of stuff. I think it's about Donna remembering the Doctor rather than a plot point as such. And I think it's a red herring from RTD because he seems. Even though he's giving a lot away, he really is trying to keep it vague, and like all of his descriptions of anything are really vague and quite funny. So I think this is just a red herring, because I don't know if they're going to bother in this talking about or going to Gallifrey. Actually, never mind. All of that, I still agree with what I just said. However, I was just thinking the last 60th was all about Gallifrey. So either they'll go into Gallifrey more and sort of carry on from that, or they'll just completely stay away from it and differentiate. Because I guess being a 60th, it wants to be sort of a moment in Doctor Who history. So to include Gallifrey would be a good idea, but also it would be a departure to not include it in a big moment.
Maybe. And to add to that little nugget of possible prediction here, it's possible that this second special could also feature and resolve several loose plot lines that were left unresolved from the previous season, Series 13, namely, of course, I think the one that comes to mind, the fact that half the bloody universe was destroyed. because Russell T Davies confirmed. I can't remember. I'll have to see if I can find the website or the article for this. But RTD confirmed that several words would be used in the second special, and one of these words was flux. So, I mean, as you've said before, it's very possible it could just be mentioned in some other context. That's very possible.
Yeah, well, flux could be, because the 10th Doctor's used the word flux before, but we're not referring to those events, just the term flux, as in fluctuation.
But at the same time, this is Doctor Who. They've done wilder things, and personally, I generally do believe it's very possible, considering they've got 3 stories here. It makes all the sense in the world that they could have one story be just about a very simple Doctor Who adventure. Another story could be about a more lore-heavy adventure, and I feel like fans would be over the moon if we were to get a story that not only returns and features Gallifrey, but has it. I doubt they'd be able to resolve every plot thread that we've been asking it for to be bloody resolved in a good way for ages. I doubt they'd be able to give us that. But if they were to, if RTD is as good as we remember, and is able to pull off a very compelling episode that involves Gallifrey and is able to bring it back to the forefront, or at the very least, not have it be destroyed and forgotten into history again, I really think that could happen here. And to add to that, this wasn't part of the notes originally, but I thought I'd include it just because it's an interesting bit of information. But one of the writers of the Doctor Who TV articles website, they had a chat with an AI. You know, all this talk about AI, might as well date this episode. But yeah, they had an AI chat predict what the second special would be about based off the little tidbits of information we have been given up to this point. And the AI basically constructed a story where the special would be about the Doctor and Donna finding themselves in the ruins of Gallifrey, and they would find out that Time Lords did survive, and the special would basically have them help the Time Lords get off planet or something. And I'm sure I'll leave a link probably to the article if people want to read what the AI said. But essentially, it somewhat resolves the idea that Gallifrey wasn't destroyed. It's the people survive, and maybe they'll go on to, maybe they'll find a new home. Maybe they'll restore Gallifrey. Whatever. The point is, I can't even remember the rest of the article really. People can read it for themselves. But even that concept alone is a possible direction that could happen with this special.
Yeah, it is, because that's what the sort of last anniversary special was about. It was like helping Gallifrey survive, so now it would be finding Gallifrey, because there's so many Gallifrey. I mean, we've talked about it before, but there's so many Gallifrey like plot points that haven't been resolved. So to do that in this, to be like a resolution for the 60th would be pretty cool. For the 50th, like in the 60th from the 50th, would be cool. But for me, from the trailers and what it seems the episodes are going to be about, I think that's just going to be a massive tangent, and I think it will be sort of more I don't know how to phrase this, but less sort of Doctor Who lore heavy and just sort of like its own this own contained event, rather than like a big thing that will have a massive impact on Gallifrey and stuff like that. It'll just be, this is what has to be resolved in this episode, and then we'll move on, sort of thing. I don't think this will have lasting consequences other than the Doctor regenerating.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. And yeah. we've got 2 more notes here to highlight for this second special. It is rumoured that this special will feature a scene where the Doctor and Donna travel to a galactic airport station where they encounter multiple aliens and monsters from both classic and new Who. And this
was this on the AI?
No, this is a completely different rumour. Different note. Okay. And this was basically based off the theory. I believe this was likely influenced by the fact that in the original storyboards for the Stolen Earth, when the Doctor and Donna travel to the Proclamation, originally they were meant to see, an entire, like, as the description describes, we were meant to see almost like an airport swarm of aliens and monsters throughout the RTD era, but due to budget constraints, they had to cut the scene, and so they just ended up having the Doctor and Donna arrive, and they were confronted by Jadoon. So, if they end up reusing this concept idea, that is one way to, as we've talked about before, celebrate the 60th anniversary. Let's have a scene where we get to see a lot of familiar aliens and monsters from the classic eras, and that's one way to do it without having it be like, oh, we need to pick a specific monster for an episode. No, let's have all of them, and it can be a cool cameo concept of, oh, this is a spaceport where multiple races will come through, and they can't kill each other, they can't attack each other because maybe it's just restricted grounds or a special location or something where no one's permitted to do anything harmful, even if the Doctor turns up there.
Yeah, it'll be like those like cantina-esque scene in the David Tennant's last episode where Captain Jack was there, and it was just like it was just the costume department from the BBC basically, just all in the same place. I think that'd be fun. And did you say that'd be part of the Shadow Proclamation? Like they'll be going there, and that's what?
No. Basically, this the idea of the Doctor and Donna seeing multiple aliens at a location that's very similar to an airport. That is the rumor that it will feature in the second 60th special, and I'm basically putting out the idea that it's possible this could have been influenced by what was intended for the Stolen Earth when the Doctor and Donna arrive at the Shadow Proclamation.
I think it would be cool if the Shadow Proclamation came back, though, like because that was a big part of RTD stuff, and that wasn't really mentioned after that. But I think it would be cool. Oh no, it was, to be fair. But I still think it would be cool if they came back, and it was like that scene, like what they wanted it to be, but just the Shadow Proclamation, and then all these other people. Like it would make sense. That's why they're there, if they want to see the Shadow Proclamation, and then there's all these other like aliens and stuff. Like that would work. Rather than just be like, oh, we're at this place. Oh, look, there's everyone else.
Yeah. And we get to the last one here. And this is a no-brainer if we're talking 60th stuff. But certain fans believe that the second special will be the one that includes multiple Doctors appearing, either as vestiges from the Edge, which was introduced during the Power of the Doctor, or potentially even through a degeneration twist. Because, as we've mentioned before, if Neil Patrick Harris is indeed playing who we think he's playing, it could very well be within his character's power to manipulate events as such. And I think also the title as well kind of gives it away to this possible concept idea, because when you think of The Wild Blue Yonder, again, I know it's based off a book or some other medium, so I'm sure people will be able to find possible comparisons to or implications to. I can't off the top of my head, but I'm focusing more on the idea of the fact that it has blue, the fact that it has blue in the title, because that really makes you think of TARDIS blue. And again, it might be a stretch, but when episodes tend to have a certain element that's connected to the Doctor or a big plot point, it tends to be a very either integral episode or a very central episode to whatever the story is. And considering we are part of the 60th anniversary specials, considering it's expected that we would see the multiple Doctors at some point, and also considering based off a lot of filming locations, at least so far, we've only seen David Tennant in what we assume to be filming for Special 1 and Special 3, but they've deliberately kept Special 2 in the dark. It's not out of the possibility to think that, oh, Special 2 is the one that's going to have all the Doctors in some form, and then that's going to be one and done, because we'll likely have 14 and 15 in the last special, and it makes all the sense in the world they'd want to give those two the spotlight for the last one, but they can't just ignore the other Doctors.
Yeah, back to what you said about the title. Just the whole title, Wild Blue Yonder, just sounds like another name for the TARDIS. Like, it does. It sounds like that could be some like articulate, fancy person, that's what they see the TARDIS is, and that's what they're like. Oh, that's what it is. That's what they call it. So yeah, 100%. Whenever the word blue is mentioned, it's always TARDIS related. So it's got to be something like that. But yeah, like there's so many rumors about Matt Smith coming back, because like Matt Smith is the one that would come back. So like he's the one that people think mostly would, and that him and then Pete Capaldi also with the ones that people have rumored. But he's less likely to come back, and then Eccleston. Wouldn't it be great if it was like Eccleston is the one that no one thinks will come back, but he's the one that does? Like, I think that would be amazing if he did come back.
Yeah.
Just for like a moment. And like no one's really talked about it that I've heard. But do you reckon Jodie would come back?
I think she will definitely come back.
Like, I know she just left, but just for like a scene.
I feel like she's definitely going to come back but I imagine it will be a short cameo, very similar to the classic Doctors from Power of the Doctor, because even though people will always say that it's too soon, she left only like 2 episodes ago. When you really think about it, considering the occasion, the anniversary, and also considering how they were able to bring back the other Doctors recently, it makes all the sense in the world that they would want to highlight every incarnation, regardless of how that era was handled writing wise. So I feel like they're obligated at this point to include her. And I mean, talking about the general incarnations themselves, I feel like 8 is a strong possibility for a multiple. I can imagine him being in several scenes. He could have a few lines of dialogue throughout the second special, and we could maybe get some very similar to Power of the Doctor. Maybe we could have some classic Doctors appear, and they will just get a bit of dialogue, because they had their highlight in that Power episode. But I mean, again, saying that now, I'm kind of thinking, no, that's not fair. It's not fair on them. Truthfully, I don't know. But in terms of speaking with them as actors, I hate to say it, but the truth is, I generally do feel like Eccleston won't come back. It would be a blessing of hell if he was to somehow come back in some role. Because I actually thought for a while, how cool would it be if he just came back as a voice? Because we know he's been doing Big Finish for a while now, and he's been very open that, I do it just for the money. And if they were to give him a big ton of money, and they promised him, you don't have to film anything, we just want you to record some lines, I could definitely imagine all the Doctors just conversing, and then we'll hear this voice, and we'll say, what are you doing? Where are you? And they'll say, plot reason wise, I'm stuck in this temporal flux thing or something, and the reason you can't see me is because of this. And they did a similar thing with Tom Baker, where they were in the 5 Doctors, where he didn't come back at all. So they just reused old footage of him. And I think in certain instances they've tried to use him again in certain stories, and they've just used audio of him, or they've had him record one scene where he's in a green screen, and they say, I'm here, but I can't help you right now because I'm stuck in this box, this portal realm. So I think they could definitely do that with Eccleston, where they could have him record lines. I won't think they would lie to him and say, this is definitely for a Big Finish thing. No, they would probably tell him.
No, that would mess him up more so than it already is.
But I think he would definitely go for a voice cameo, and they could find a very reasonable way to explain it in story. Matt Smith, I feel like he's definitely one of the most obvious ones, because he's still, he can still do a lot as a Doctor, but at the same time, he's also a very big actor now. So I can't imagine him being very integral to the entire story. But so he could sort of like 8. They could give him a lot more dialogue, likely interacting with Tennant more. Maybe as a nice little throwback to the 50th. But I feel like in terms of giving them a lot of big roles, I feel like it's mostly just going to be extended cameos, really. But if we're talking about Doctors that will get the most, Matt Smith would be up there.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be nice. I thought what they were going to do with 3 episodes was going to do a Doctor per episode. Like, that's what, like, David Tennant would be number 1, and then Matt Smith would do number 2, and then Mary Capaldi does one. But it's just going to be David Tennant for all 3. They've already said so. I think Matt Smith could easily have like a whole plot to or like a whole thing to do. and it would be nice rather than just having a cameo to have something to actually do as the Doctor. But if they're just focusing on David Tennant, they probably wouldn't bother.
I mean, just rounding out the Doctors here with Capaldi, sort of similar. He's said that he doesn't want to do it, return for the 60th. Considering how big of a fan he is, I could imagine him coming back just for a cameo, a very short cameo. But yeah, the dream would be to have them come back in individual episodes. So, because I think ever since the Power of the Doctor came out, everyone jumped on the idea that we'll see all the Doctors together in The Edge. That's the most natural way people would do it, especially after it was introduced 2 stories prior. But also, I do love the concept that was heavily rumored before that episode even aired, that there will be a degeneration throughout the specials, and the Doctor will be switching between bodies. And yeah, I mean, it's a shame they somewhat used that in Power of the Doctor too, but I would just love to see all the Doctors together again, because I think the main thing is because not only is it an anniversary occasion, you've got to acknowledge the past and celebrate it too, because they worked hard too. They are what built the foundation of Doctor Who from the beginning to continuing to do it to even now, even the ones that we didn't like. So they have to acknowledge them in some way, out of respect and out of respect for the fans too. And also just because I like the idea of the Doctors being together one last time, because again, I hate bringing up the age thing again, but the truth is that a lot of these actors they won't be here forever. And I mean, can you generally say that when the 70th anniversary rolls around in 10 years' time, we'll be having every Doctor together again? I strongly feel otherwise. So I feel like this is probably their last chance really to get as many Doctors as they can together in one scene and actually have them exchange dialogue.
I mean, yeah, it might be like, so in the trailer there's like a scene where Ncuti Gat was in it. It might be that scene, like even if it is on the Edge or whatever it is, where they're all, but they rather than just being one at a time, if they were all in it at the same time, I think that would still be fun. Or like similar how at the end of the 50th they were just all looking at Gallifrey as JPEGs, but like I think it'd be like you said, there isn't in another 10 years it would be unlikely that all of them could come back who are still going. So yeah, might as well do it now than never.
Yeah, I mean, if the Wild Blue Yonder does involve Gallifrey's return, I've just got this mental image in my head right now of the 14th Doctor and every other surviving Doctor just walking alongside him in the ruins of Gallifrey. And maybe Donna can't see them because they're all in the Doctor's head, so only the Doctor can see them. But that just sounds like such a striking image of all the Doctors looking at what remains of their home planet, and they're just trying to come to terms with the fact that even after everything we tried, we still lost Gallifrey, and then the episode ends up resolving it with them finding out, Gallifrey is still alive, the people are still alive, we can continue. I mean, that sounds...
Yeah, Flux never happened.
yeah. Don't worry. All that drama that happened there, it's not worth it because we were able to salvage the good potential. But yeah, I mean, whatever ends up happening with the second special, I hope it's good. I hope it lives up to the theories. At least it lives up to the potential of an anniversary special. And if it doesn't turn out to involve Gallifrey, and it is able to resolve it in a good way that doesn't feel like it's messing it up further, then I'll be over the moon, and that will just be with the second special.
Yeah.
So now we get to the last special, the Giggle, and as you said, the first bullet point here is that the Celestial Toymaker is strongly rumoured to be the main antagonist of this special, and it's suggested that he could potentially be the overarching villain throughout all 3 specials, considering the marketing, that's how it's pushed it so far. And this is interesting. I don't know if you picked this up at all during the trailers, but do you remember in one of the trailers you see the Doctor in this base-like building, possibly a unit base, and you see these big screens on the TV, and
Yeah.
they've got this weird puppet face on the screen.
Yeah.
Some fans have put together, it's very possible this puppet could be Scooty Bill, who was a ventriloquist.
Who?
I'm getting there, mate.
Scooty Bill.
Yeah.
That's made up.
This is genuine. This was a ventriloquist puppet that was used
Scooty
as
Bill.
part of the first television broadcast back during the early 20th century. So essentially, he was just a normal puppet that people, when they were testing out the TV for the first time, they used him.
So it's not a Doctor Who thing?
No, this is nothing. This is more real world.
I see. I thought that was Doctor Who villain. I'm like, Scooty Bill is not a Doctor Who villain. I see.
Yeah. So that's who fans believe they've summed up who this face could belong to. And if this does turn out to be the case, some have also latched onto the idea that this could be how the toy maker is basically controlling people, because in the trailer we see some people in the streets of London we see basically carnage happening. We see people running around, some people attacking each other, the Doctor looking around as chaos happens all around him, and this mysterious figure is just dancing around. Some people have come to the conclusion that he could be controlling the population of Earth, and that he's doing it through their TVs. And he could have been doing this as far back as the earlier 20th century. So he's been around for a long time. He's sort of similar to the Silence, where the Doctor implanted messages into humanity saying, every time you see this footage, you will automatically kill any silences you see. Something similar could have happened here, where the Toymaker, when people see this footage for the first time, or whenever they see it, it implements with it basically gives him hold over them. So that could be a possible element of the plot for the special.
Yeah, and there's some sort of like brainwashing. Well, he does say he's brainwashing you, I think, or something like that, or mind control. And yeah, like people could tune into the telly and then they get mind controlled by him. Yeah, that would be cool. I always love that sort of type of villain.
Onto the next note, and this is like a very, very obvious one, of course. It's believed / rumoured that the Celestial Toymaker is behind the Doctor's newest face, and making it look like his 10th incarnation, and he's basically forcing the Doctor to relive the glory days. And as you mentioned earlier, I agree. I definitely like this concept, the idea of for a premise, really, for a villain of an anniversary special. What better way to have it in the plot be about reflecting on the past by also revisiting the past in this way? And again, out of all the Who characters out there that have very god level powers, it makes total sense for the Celestial Toymaker to have the ability to mold reality and make the Doctor appear differently. And I think if this does turn out to be the case, it would be interesting, because in the Celestial Toymaker's first introduction story, named after himself of course, that story features a scene where the Doctor gets turned invisible, and behind the scenes, when they were filming that episode, I think it was the writer or the director of that episode, they didn't like William Hartnell, so they genuinely tried to write him out of the show by writing that when the Doctor is restored to visibility, he's played by a completely different actor, and that person would portray the Doctor going forward. But they reverted that. I know.
They can't do that.
They reverted that in the end. And I do believe this was before they conceived for Generation 2. Yeah, so
interesting. Maybe that could happen again.
But again, if this is the Toymaker, this could be I wouldn't be surprised if that story, that scenario, could have influenced this story too. How let's change your face. Let's give you a different face. Why not this face that you have been? It's openly known that you were very attached to this face, considering and also I think from a narrative perspective, it makes a lot of sense to be the 10th Doctor, because his Doctor's era, his time, his incarnation ended really refusing. He didn't want to go, and that's very sad. And that's something that has stuck with people for years. Some people feel like it was bad, and I can see the faults in it. But if this, yeah, I just feel like if this is the case where of the story, and this entire three specials are about the 14th Doctor learning to accept that I can't keep getting stuck in the past. I need to accept myself. I need to accept what's happening, and I need to move forward because that's what change is. That's what's best for everything. I feel like that would be a nice way to resolve things without revisiting the 10th Doctor and undermining his era, because there are fans to that. But I think this is a nice way that could wrap it up. And this leads into another note here, which I'll jump forward to because this is near the end. But I thought I'd just notice while we're.
Can I just say just about what you just said? A lot of people are annoyed about like the 10th Doctor's like last line, and he refused to leave, and like how the whole point of that episode was about him not wanting to change. So like it sort of set Matt Smith up for failure a little bit, because it's like even if like no one wants David Tennant to go, even David Tennant or like even his Doctor. So yeah, it would be a nice like resolution to that point, like you said, to him to want or to accept that he has to change, and he will. And I think like the last line should be of him before he regenerates should be something like "I'm ready" or something like that. Not "I want to go," because that's a bit silly, but something along those lines. So it's like the opposite of what he said when he regenerated the first time.
Yeah, and jumping to the other note here, I wanted to mention, even though this one's a bit later on. But add to the conversation we were just having, one fan theory centers on the idea that the 14th Doctor's last words before he regenerates will be either "time to go" or "I'm ready to go." So yeah, that's definitely. It sounds, again, story potential wise, it just sounds very promising if this does turn out to be a lot of the case. So the next note here. Bonnie Langford is rumoured to be returning for the specials, possibly in the third, reprising her role as Melanie Melbush from Classic Who. So, off the top of your head, mate, do you know who Mel is?
Well, I know what she looks like. She looks a bit like Cilla Black. But I never watched. Well, I did watch the classic, so I never watched her as in Doctor Who. I only know that she has is coming back definitely for the next series with Shooter Gatwa. And that's all I know about her. Okay, genuinely.
Cool. So I've got a little summary here that I hope helps give you a picture of her character. So she was a companion of the 6th and 7th Doctors, and was a computer programmer from Earth during the 20th century. And she was gifted with an eidetic memory. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. She was basically... damn it. Even Google Word doesn't know what that is. But essentially she had I think it's...
Eidetic?
Yeah. Essentially she was just very...
Yeah. I think it's eidetic. I think the what does the thing do?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. But
thing?
Word doesn't seem to know what it is either. So
eidetic, I think, is I've heard eidetic memory or photographic, or
that's probably what it is. Photographic memory. But yeah, she was depicted. She was a companion, and she was depicted as being very cheery, and she had a very cheery and perky personality, and was also a health enthusiast and vegan and vegetarian, who would often encourage the 6th Doctor to exercise and drink carrot juice.
Carrot juice, yeah, boy.
Yeah, the famous last words of the 6th Doctor.
I think that's amazing.
So Mel is notable as a companion, not just for her scream and for her continued use of popularising carrot juice. She is also popular. Well, she is notable among Whovians because she's one of the few companions to not have a proper introduction story.
What does that mean?
She debuted in the 1986 serial Trial of a Time Lord, and in that story she is depicted being taken out of time by the Time Lords to stand witness for the Doctor's trial. And from her point of view, she has been travelling with the Doctor already, but he has only just met her for the first time. So this is very, very reminiscent for modern fans of River Song. But unlike River Song, after the Trial of Time Lord story is concluded, the Doctor, off-screen, returns her to her own timeline. And when we pick up the story in the next serial, he and Mel have been travelling together from a more direct timeline onwards. So it's kind of confusing. Don't be surprised. I'm not surprised if you wouldn't be able to properly summarise all of that. But essentially, she. I mean, what do you think off the top of that? What do you think?
Well, I mean, sure. I don't really know what to think about it because I need to watch it because, like you said, yeah, it's difficult to sort of put into my brain what you mean. But I mean, it's cool that she's coming back if she was a well-liked companion.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would argue that because I mean, for me, even though I grew up watching a lot of classic Who, the sixth and seventh Doctor's eras, I will openly admit, I've not seen every story, and out of all of them, the only companions that I consider very notable of that era would be Ace, if I'm being honest. She's the one that stood out to me the most, especially when I was younger. I never really was too openly fond of Mel's character, and I think I don't want to say was her only standout thing, but again, I can't speak for her character in every full context. But I just do remember this one scenario where one of the reasons she was cast, and I'm confident this isn't the only reason, but I imagine this definitely did play a factor into her casting, where she had a very distinct scream, and in one of the episodes of Trial of a Time Lord, it ends on a cliffhanger with Mel screaming, and her scream was so high pitched that it synced up with the outro, the intro.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, so that's in terms of production, that's a cool use of your actors' vocals. In terms of character, I mean, let's just say I will not try to diminish her any further because the truth is she does have her fans. She does have a character. I just can't speak for her character in depth because I haven't seen her full character in action. But what is nice about this is that if this is the case, I'm jumping in with a gun there, but yeah, I'll just finish up the summary here. Essentially, she travels with the Doctor for a while, past into his seventh incarnation, but she eventually leaves the Doctor to continue traveling the universe in space with this guy called Sablon Glitz, who's an acquaintance of the Doctor and hers as well, and that's how her story ends. She literally chooses to continue traveling, just not with the Doctor. And after that, there's varying accounts in Doctor Who expanded media that have her. Again, some of them have her die, some of them have her just return to Earth and settle down. Some of them have her start up a business and she becomes like the head of a carrot juice company. but
okay,
yeah, the fact that we now know. Again, in terms of the 60th, it's rumoured that she's going to be appearing because based off the evidence we have, there's this one scene that was captured when filming the specials where the Doctor and Donna walk out of the TARDIS, and Donna is quoted as saying, "What about Mel?" And the Doctor says, "Oh, she's brilliant, isn't she?" And let's be honest, Mel could be anyone. It could be one of the members of UNIT, maybe it could be one of Rose's friends from the first special, maybe it could be a completely new character we have yet to see in the marketing. But considering that we've now found out that Mel Bush will be returning in the series 14 alongside the 15th Doctor, it does seem a lot more likely that this could be her proper reintroduction story. And also considering that she was part of the companion support group during Power of the Doctor as well. So there is precedent to believe that she is returning in the 60th specials first before getting another crack at the adventuring in this next season. And as for her character, I'd like to think that it depends how the entire RTD era ends up being written and handled character-wise and story-wise, but if it's done really good, I can definitely see this becoming very similar to how Sarah Jane was reintroduced to the modern series, and she became so popular because she was already popular during the classic era, but her reintroduction equally boosted her popularity to the point where they gave her her own spin-off. So we could see history would be repeating here, where he's now doing it almost with the opposite, where it's one of the more lesser known companions, I'd like to say, where they might not have had the most standout character or storylines or even era really, but the fact that they're coming back and they will be given a lot of screen time, a lot of chances to show their acting chops, I think it will be very interesting. And who knows, again, if the talks about potential spin-offs are true in other areas, a villain spin-off, a unit spin-off, possibly another central companion spin-off like Sarah Jane Adventures, I could definitely see Mel get involved in that, considering, again, as her background states, she's a computer programmer.
Maybe she could be involved in the unit spin-off, and she could just be in that as Mel rather than having her own spin-off. Because I think if she's a lesser known companion, like you say, it will probably be less likely for her to have her own media completely. But if she's involved in the unit one, which might be more popular and more sort of known to younger generations, it will sort of be the best of both. She comes back in a spin-off, but it's a spin-off with other people, and she's not the main character. Because if she's a programmer, she can program for unit.
Yeah, I could definitely imagine the unit show reintroducing a lot of familiar unit characters, and then we have the one character who's associated with the Doctor, and considering their background skill and the skills they would have learned in the years since they left, it would definitely make for a compelling cast, to say the least, if that is the case.
I think so.
So, moving on to the last one. Well, sorry, there's two more, but one of them's quite quick. So, the second to last one here, the third special, is rumoured to be a loose adaptation of the unmade Doctor Who 89 serial, The Nightmare Fair, which featured the Sixth Doctor and his companion Perry encountering the Celestial Toymaker at an amusement park in Blackpool. In basic summary, this story reveals that the Celestial Toymaker got trapped on Earth during ancient times. They spent millennia, stuck on Earth trying to, just survive, and eventually he, over time, was able to. Again, I'm forgetting the bigger plot points of this story because this was originally a script that was never got turned into a story, and then they turned it into an audio drama. So you can listen to it if you want to. But essentially, he ends up kidnapping people who go to this amusement park, and the Doctor and Perry basically have to find out why people are disappearing. They team up with this one kid whose brother was taken, and the plot revolves with the Doctor trapping the Celestial Toymaker in this other dimension, and that's the gist of the big story there. And I think it's very possible this could not be connected whatsoever. But when you look at the notes we've got so far and the marketing, it's very possible this could be the bones of this story could have some influence on what the plot could be.
Maybe that could have been the sort of prequel to this episode where that stuff happened. Did you say this was made or it wasn't made?
It wasn't made.
Yeah, so maybe it could be it could have been an event that happened that we just didn't, it's the sort of prelude to this, or this could be it, like you said about the Star Beast. This could just be adapted from what that was supposed to be.
Maybe. Yeah. If anything, it sounds for an interesting comparison, and I can't really add much to that other than if it is the case, it's a compelling enough idea to approach the story with. And the last note here to the 60th. We've got here. This is one that I didn't figure out. I have yet to find this predominantly in the fandom, but this is one that you brought up that made me aware of it first. And we actually caught this on live on one of our episodes. Well, when you caught my reaction to it, I was fully against it at the time. but you immediately softened me to the idea after what you'd explained it. But it's very possible that the 60th anniversary specials could end with the death of Donna Noble. So
Yeah.
here and now, mate, what do you think of this?
Well, I mean, we have a whole episode about it already, but I think it's a likely conclusion because I don't think they would. I don't think they would bring her back to then just have her remember everything and live on, being the sort of companion that like goes on and does their own thing, thinking about the Doctor and in memory of the Doctor. I don't think that'll be the case with this one, because a lot of people, like how I've said about a lot of people, want the conclusion of the 10th Doctor story to be changed. They want the opposite for Donna. Like, Donna's story happened, and because of that, she had to forget about the Doctor. And then even when she came back in the 10th Doctor's last couple episodes, she never interacted with him. And that never was touched. Like, it was still, her ending happened, and like she forgot about the Doctor and she forgot about everything, because if she didn't, she would die. I think that has to be honoured in this, and I don't think, unless they have a really clever way of solving it with her living on, I think it might be the case where she remembers the Doctor and then she has to. I don't think it'll just be that she just forgets it again, because that's already happened. I think she'll have to either die or not. Like, it'll be one of the two. But I think it will sort of be a bittersweet thing to have her back, and then because of that, she has to die.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I will admit, I have softened to the idea since then. A part of me is still slightly unsure about it, considering the implications, because it just makes that. I mean, as you said, it would be very depressing, and also considering that if that does happen, we know, very likely we know that if she does die, she'll be leaving behind her husband, her parent, her mother, her grandfather, and her kid, and that's going to be a very tough scene, really, to see if that is the case. However, I am fully in support of it in consideration, because if that is the case, if Donna does end up dying, and not only is that a very bittersweet way to end her story, but it's also a consequence of it, which is again something Doctor Who has somewhat been lacking in certain storylines and companions in their departures, really. And I mean, this wasn't. I think this was just made off the top of my head now, but I really like the idea, because you mentioned in a previous episode we did how it would be cool if a future companion could go on to become a villain. How cool would it be if if Rose, this new character from the 60th, she meets the Doctor, and based off she's been brought up somewhat, she's unknowingly been brought up on the adventures of the Doctor. Maybe Donna told her bedtime stories, and she was unaware that she was actually telling her about her adventures with the Doctor. She just assumed they were just stories she made up. So,
but also her name is Rose.
Yeah, so
based off of like Donna's recollection of other companions.
Yeah, so if she finds out about her connection with the Doctor in the first special, she gets to find out that, oh wow, you went on, you saved the universe, you with my mum, and I'm named after this other legendary figure in your lives, and also I've been growing up on your stories, unaware of it. That's so cool, and I imagine she would be very fan. She'd be a very big fan of that. But to then
similar to Wilf.
Yeah, but to then find out that her mother was killed in the last special, who's to say that could not make her resent the Doctor, depending on how it happens? And going into future seasons, who's to say we won't meet a new character? Maybe it's the same actress. No, not new character. Maybe we'll see another character. We'll see this character return, and it's the same character, and it's like it could be like a few years later, and she's sought revenge against the Doctor. I mean, that's just like one off the cuff of my head idea right there. But that's one way you could change things up. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that would be a cool concept to have as a companion sort of turning evil, and it would have that would be the consequence of like the Doctor and Donna, reuniting again.
Mm. I mean, again, time. You know what? I'll actually save this as a tease for the next episode we're going to do. But let's just say this. Watch the next episode where we'll be discussing the future of Doctor Who. And let's just say this. This character could be the one who does the horrible deed that we will discuss in the next episode. And yeah, as conclusion, overall, that is what we know so far about the 60th. So on an overall scale, mate, right now, what do you think? Are you really anticipating it, or are you a bit indifferent still? Are you more just like curious? What do you think? What do you think overall?
Well, obviously David Tennant and RTD and Donna and all this sort of stuff coming back, I'm very excited for. I did feel though when I watched the first trailer that some of it looked a little, and I don't know if it's because it's really high quality, like high definition cameras and all this stuff, but some of the sets and like especially the spaceship ones just look a little bit cheap or a little bit, you know, not like Doctor Who standard of like sets and stuff like that. So maybe it was just because it's an early trailer and maybe they need to like edit it and all this sort of stuff and change the color grading and all this sort of stuff to make it look better. But that's the only thing I'm worried about, is that it's going to look a little cheap and a little bit tacky compared to how it has been before. But I think that's quite a small complaint to have, to be honest, if we're getting all this, like if we get a good story and all the characters coming back. So I'm excited. But this is something I wanted to mention, and I think this is we should mention this in the lead up to the 60th, is there's a thing happening on social media that I'm not a big fan of. Well, I say I'm not a big fan of. I'm not, from what I've seen of the advertising for it, it doesn't look very entertaining. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, but it's the Doomsday.
Oh my
thing.
God! I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, and it just sort of brings a downer on it a little bit. You've seen the Doomsday stuff, haven't you?
I saw the teaser they put out, and I'm just like, oh my God, that is so annoying. Because the marketing leading up to it was so cool. They put out this little teaser or something saying, "Oh, Doomsday is coming," and immediately people thought, "Oh, what does this mean for the 60th? Oh, is this part of a connection, a connective element to the RTD era? Oh, even all the Rose fans, is this connected to Rose Tyler?" And no, it's just we get this very unknown comedian that none of us have seen, I'm sure, and she's in a bad green screen in a very tacky, cheap BBC space suit get up, saying, "I need to find the Doctor in 24 hours because literal death is coming for me, and I need to find him." Like, what is this?
Oh, and my name is Doom, and this is my day. Like, that's why it's called Doomsday, because it's not Doomsday, it's Doomsday.
I thought Chibnall left.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because like that one trailer was bad, but then they keep releasing other stuff that just looks a bit awful. And I'm sure that if you actually watch or listen to, or engage with the media that is actually doing, I'm sure it's fine. But it's just these teasers and these like advertisements are just embarrassing. Like, to Doctor Who, it just and like a lot of people have been saying it. It's not just like a couple of people. It's the majority of the comments on all of these things are just like, why is this happening? Who wants this? Who's actually interested? And I'm sure there are people who like it, but it just looks awful, and it looks embarrassing.
Yeah, if anything, they would have probably saved a lot of face if they just had her voice the character, because I'm thinking back to some of the trailers they put out for Big Finish, where it's all basically just animated. I mean, there's this great one that comes to mind of a series of stories for the Eighth Doctor, and it just focuses on the TARDIS in this. If I'm remembering it right, it's this abandoned wasteland or something, and it focuses on the TARDIS, and then we enter the TARDIS through ourselves, as if we're the ones entering it. And you enter the console room; it's very dark and abandoned, and then you hear something, and you look up, and there's these creatures on the walls, and that's a teary and awesome concept of a teaser. And I kind of feel like if they'd done something like that, and they just had this, they brought in this comedian, sure, but if they just had her voice the character, and they gave her this cool suit that's a bit more less cheap BBC looking,
cheap.
Because again, they've been able to do that in Big Finish too. They've got, I mean, how many times have they got stills of actors from old Doctor Who episodes that they featured in, and they've just stuck a suit or a nun costume on them, thinking of the one that River used, because they can do that, and they make it look reasonably realistic. So they could have just promoted this as a.
I just don't think they should need to do the live action stuff. Like you said, like they've done it with Big Finish before, where there's been an animated teaser or just a thumbnail or something like that. They don't need to do all these live action things because they just look incredibly bad. Because like she's like got this hologram watch on and she's looking at it, but like she's moving her head in such a way that it just looks like, oh, look at what's over there. It's like when the 13th Doctor would use a Sonic, and it was every single time she would just like extend her arm in the most flamboyant way, and it was just like, what are you doing? And it just seems a bit like that,
overly dramatic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, oh, and I feel sorry for this lady because like she's clearly got this gig where it's like, oh, I'm going to be this really big character in Doctor Who that's like it spans all these different medias, but like no one likes her, and everyone's like, oh, she's awful. But it's like, I'm sure she's not. It's just these particular like little skits are just really not the vibe. But also some people have been like, she's not really well cast to be, apparently she's supposed to be like the most deadly assassin in all of the galaxy. It's like, she doesn't seem it. She seems a bit like, she looks like the actress who became a concrete slab in what was that one?
Yeah,
with
Love and Monsters.
Like Love and Monsters. Yeah, she looks like that actress. So I would put her to be the most deadly assassin. I'd put her to be some sort of sweet lady who just wants to be like it. You know, if it was her, just not as that character, great. But she doesn't fit as the character that she's been cast as. But like I said, these live action things just are completely unnecessary. But then also, don't call it Doomsday, because obviously there's already a thing in Doctor Who called Doomsday. Doomsday is bad as a title anyway, even if it didn't harken back to Doomsday. But also, the theme song, like the little bit of music that plays after all the trailers, is so horrendously awful. It's like, it sounds like someone screaming. It's just like, and I'm like, oh, come on now, just don't. And it's like this sort of like drill hip hop beat, and it's like, that's not Doctor Who. The only time that's ever been Doctor Who is when a character who's young played it, and as a joke in Arachnids in the UK, and like that I was like, okay, it makes sense with the character, but I don't like it. And then this is like, this is the theme.
God damn it!
It definitely wasn't. Murray Gold. To
give a unconnected comparison, but Time Agent, which is a fan series made by Doctor Who fans, which celebrated its 50th anniversary this year, they put out a teaser for their anniversary special last month or so, and that, in my opinion, generated more hype for anything Doctor Who related, more so than what this teaser did for me. And really, it just boils for me. It boils down to that. This feels like, I understand that Doctor Who gears to a family audience, but this feels like it was made by people who felt like, oh, we need to gear to the kids, and the kids don't take things too seriously, so we can make this character very, very over dramatic. We can use the cheapest effects or whatever, because we know it's not whatever. I'm sure that's not 100% the case, but the final product, as you said, does not scream well done. And even just the fact that the character itself isn't named Dooms or Doom or something, it's just, I mean, are they? If she was a villain like Doctor Doom, I'd understand. But the fact that they're promoting her, I mean, they can make her an assassin
Yeah.
too. But the fact that she seems to be set up as this, again, just based on the teaser, the fact that she's set up as this, like, we're supposed to follow her as a protagonist character. I mean, it would be one thing if she was a villain and we would have to follow a villain. Maybe that could lead to something. But the fact that it's executed in such a jovialistic way, the tone just does not match.
Yeah, she seems like this nice character, but then oh yeah, I'm a deadly assassin. It's like what this is.
Yeah,
this
this feels like
match.
the kind of character who would say, I am the deadliest person in the universe," and you find out they're just the temp in in the office of the big bad. Like, they're the person who thinks they're the shit, when really they're not.
No, yeah, I'm just watching the clips now, and it's just like the costume is just so awful. And also, someone said, like, in all the different teasers, like, it's a race against time. But in every single teaser, she's in the same location. So it's like, for someone who's like trying to get across the galaxy, she's really taking her time.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of hyping for the 60th, this is one area they failed, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Is this hype for the 60th? Because, like, is it supposed to be? Is it going to lead into it somehow? Is she going to be in it? I'm not.
I doubt it. I imagine what they'll probably do is that she'll just be a way for them to have multiple doctors, because she's meant to find the Doctor. I can guarantee it's probably going to be her trying to find the 14th Doctor, and she'll just meet multiple throughout the comic books and the audiobooks and whatever mediums they have. She'll probably encounter all the previous Doctors, so they'll get a highlight in the other expanded media leading up to the 60th. And then they'll do a special event, maybe.
It says in the announcement post that Doomsday coming this year is a special multi-platform story that will celebrate Doctor Who's 60th anniversary by introducing this brand new character on a 24-hour pursuit of the Doctor.
Yeah, and I imagine that will probably conclude around the 60th, where she will encounter the 14th Doctor, maybe preceding the events of the 60th specials. So maybe we'll get an audio story or a comic book that will have her meet the Doctor and conclude the Doom storyline. And maybe they might have filmed one line in the 60th where the Doctor says, "Oh, Doom would have loved this," or something. Or maybe like that. Who knows?
I fucking hope not. But yeah, it might be because they have already released a comic with David Tennant with the 14th Doctor, so it might just be another one of them.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they'll never mention it.
Fingers crossed, mate. But yeah, overall, for me, I personally, again, I want to say a year ago, but before we knew anything about the 60th, I was just unsure, because like you, I felt like, with the direction the show's gone and how it's been handled, I wouldn't be surprised if the show got cancelled. We missed out on the 60th. But ever since the news about David coming back, ever since we found out about Ncuti Gatwood's casting, ever since we've gotten a bit more of an idea of what the specials might be about, and all the stuff that's come along with it, even just how the marketing has been done when it's been done well, excluding Doomsday. Yeah, I am very optimistic, but I will not deny that part of me is I still have a lingering bit of trepidation in my heart. And that's mostly just because of how the Chibnall era went. And again, we've done so many videos by this point explaining why. But yeah, let's just say I am excited, mainly excited because there's a lot of promise with these 3 specials. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they will do with David Tennant and Catherine Tate coming back. And I just hope that Russell still has it, really. I hope he's still got the passion and the love he has for these characters. And whatever he ends up doing, I hope it's something that will benefit these characters story-wise in the long run, and we will like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'd come back if he didn't.
Yeah, and I think, just being a bit indulgent here, I really do hope we see Peter Capaldi and Matt Smith again, just because Capaldi is my one of my favourites. And he's up there alongside Tennant, and Smith I've really grown to appreciate ever since the Whittaker era, because I still remember how much I was very dismissive of him when he started, and I didn't grow to like appreciate him a bit more until he left. And once Jodie came along, I'm like, oh shit, we really had it good with Smith, because what the hell was this? So I would really jump at the chance to see Smith again with Tennant and with Capaldi on screen for at least a few minutes.
I mean, Smith and Tennant have done their stuff already. I just hope Capaldi gets to be with one of the modern Doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, by the time this episode goes up, we'll probably only have a few weeks or so to go, depending on how much time I have to edit this episode. And again, I'm sure. Again, I don't know. You know me and my editing; it takes a while, depending on life. But as things go, we will see.
Yeah. Isn't the first episode supposed to be released like end of
again? As
October?
of this recording, we have no confirmed the release dates, but it's generally we're going to have the episode in November.
I've heard that it might be the first episode would be like a Halloween release, and then the second one will be mid. When is the Doctor Who anniversary? The day?
23rd of November.
23rd. So I've heard it will be the end of October, first or second week of November, and then near the 23rd, so that it will be like that. The last episode will be on the 23rd. What day is the 23rd? Let me just check.
I think it's meant to be a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
It's a Thursday, so it will either be the week before or the week after.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that would work out. So if they do it on a Halloween release, so like the 29th or the 28th or 29th, it depends if it's a Saturday or Sunday, then the 11th or 12th, and then the 25th or 26th, so that it won't be every week, it will be every other week.
Okay.
Because I think if it was every week, it might be a little bit over and done with. But if it's a 2-week wait in between each episode, it would be slightly more anticipated and sort of similar to how you have to wait ages for a Christmas special.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think of that before. That would be interesting. Definitely a good way to prolong it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, there is a lot to look forward to. There's a little bit of trepidation in me still, but I'm going to squander that for now and give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, me too.
We'll have to wait and see, but for now, let's hold hope for the future, because there is a lot to look forward to, and there's especially a lot to look forward to beyond the 60th. But we will talk about that in another episode.